Good morning, everybody. It's 11 o'clock here in Brussels, in Central Europe, and good afternoon if you are in Asia, or good evening even, or good night if you're still in Central America or in the United States of America, in that part of the world, because this is going to be, and it is, a global webinar. We're going to discuss an interesting topic, and the topic has to do with what we actually eat, and particularly with what we see on packages when we go to the supermarket. And I'm so excited because whenever I go there, I read gluten-free, lactose-free, fat-free, sugar-free, free from nuts, free from flour, no preservatives, dairy-free, no additives, wet-free, without yeast, free from soy, GMO-free, egg-free, meat-free, and palm oil free. And today we're exactly going to talk about that. But let me tell you, because a few years ago, when my mom goes shopping, she comes home and she showed me some products, and they were rich of protein, rich of vitamin. So we were looking for more. And then later on, it's all about free. So we like to take away things. So I think we have to think about how we go shopping and our behavior. Before we wanted more, now we want less. And that's part of how human beings are. And it's interesting because during the COVID, unfortunately, this pandemic that is keeping us still far away, hopefully not for much, it's fun because people are looking again for more, particularly vitamins. We want food with vitamins, and that's our behavior. And food companies bringing food to us, and thanks for doing that, particularly during such a bad and awful time like the pandemic. Food was on the shelf, and they say that they follow our perception, they follow our behavior. True, but who is shaping our behavior? Why do we make some choices? Where do we get information? Why do we think that something might not be good for us or something is too much for us? Well, this is an interesting question, and we're going to discuss this particularly with a specific focus on palm oil free. And particularly, the title of this seminar is very clear, and it's palm oil free labels misleading consumers. So the idea is that these labelings often are not telling us the truth, but they risk to mislead us. And of course, the European Union, we know, is undertaking very interesting and important challenges that we all support. Because the two goals are making the planet more sustainable, making our choices more sustainable, but on the other side is making our lives healthier. And one of the ways to make our lives healthier is through what the European Union argued, or the Commission, harmonizing labeling scheme or mandatory labeling scheme. And Europe is actually, the Commission and the Parliament are currently working on this. So it's probably a good time to talk about palm oil free labels, because according to some information legislation or guidelines from the Commission, certain free from are allowed, certain others are allowed, but each country should decide whether they are allowed or not. And when it comes to palm oil free, there is a big debate here in Europe, here in Brussels, but also in every country. And we know that different governments, different parliaments took different decisions. You have to prove that free from should bring a benefit, and it should not mislead. If I think, for instance, about the Italian government, so you can say palm oil free, but you should prove that there is an improvement in the fact that that ingredient particularly has been taken away. And when companies take away palm oil, you would say probably they do it for commercial purposes. Yes, but what do they communicate? Well, initially they said we take away palm oil because we want to reduce saturated fats. And then we figure out that was not always the case. And in some other situation, they said because palm oil is not enough sustainable and we're replacing it with something better. Is it really better? So are consumers really informed to make free choices? Because at the end, as the European Commission said, we should empower the consumer. So give the consumer the chance to make free choices. And we are going to discuss all of this today with two distinguished guests, one being Inke Thiesinger from the EPOA, the European Palm Oil Alliance, and then from Nikon Rosen from Solidaridad Network, actually is the honorary president. But before that, we move, and I leave the word to the organizers or the promoter of this interesting webinar, who is the Dr. Yusuf Baziron, who's the executive director of the CPOPC. It's the Council of Palm Oil Producing Country. So, Mr. Dr. Baziron, the word and the floor is to you, or I would say today still, the camera is to you.
Thank you, Professor Paganini. Can you hear me now?
Perfect. Yeah? Loud and clear.
Very good. And also, hello to Mr. Nico, also Imkia Singer, and good morning, distinguished speakers and participants in the EU, and good afternoon from thousands of kilometers away here in Southeast Asia for participants from this part of the world. I would like to thank everyone today for joining us our webinar session this afternoon. Today's webinar is part of CPOPC's webinar series that we have been running for the past 3 months during this COVID-19 pandemic. Today's topic is the prevalent use of palm oil-free labels in the EU, and it is a major concern to us as producers of palm oil because of its many negative implications to palm oil trade. The topic is perfectly spotlight as we are going to commemorate the World Food Day this week. Palm oil producing and consuming countries share responsibility to actively promote the attainment of goal number 12 of the SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, i.e. responsible production and consumption of commodities like palm oil, or sustainable production and consumption of commodities like palm oil. Therefore, this webinar reflects the partnership of fulfilling that responsibility. As an intergovernmental organization, CPOPC, we are fully aware that the European Union has a strong position to phase out palm oil in biofuel use via RED2 and even RED3, and also in food users in allowing the palm oil-free labels. However, the ongoing negative sentiments that have been existing for the longest time in the EU markets requires a consistent effort to build a common understanding, because we are facing a global challenge of growing consumption of vegetable oils, but slowing growth in the supply of vegetable oil because of limited arable land and threat of deforestation. I will not preach on how palm oil contributes to the attainment of SDGs in palm oil producing countries, because sustainable development is a core principle in the Treaty on the European Union and a priority objective for the Union's internal and external policies. The EU has a solid understanding on palm oil as the most sustainable, environmentally friendly oil crop because it requires less land and inorganic inputs to attain a high yield, and it provides higher economic incentives, especially to smallholder farmers throughout the world. Against this backdrop, to realize that there is a rising palm oil-free label on consumer products in the EU market is quite an irony. The trend set by the EU of banning palm oil for food use as implied by the palm oil-free label and for biofuel use via the RED2 directive is potentially very dangerous. If the trend is adopted by other countries, it means 70 million tons of palm oil that is currently produced has to be replaced with 70 million tons of soybean oil or rapeseed oil. It will require land 3 times the size of France for the world to produce 70 million tons of soya oil to replace palm oil. Imagine the deforestation that would entail, and it will make a mockery of the EU policies of the Green Deal or Fit 55 and all the climate change mitigation initiatives of the EU. Let me leave a sincere message here that in the light of expanding global demand and shortages of supply of oils and fats in the future projection, sustainably produced palm oil, as it is today, is offering the best solution to mitigate climate change through reduced deforestation and to provide the most balanced dietary oil to improve your good to bad cholesterol ratio far above the capability of all the other oils, especially trans fats. The fact that palm oil is offering these solutions and not become part of the perceived problems is borne by its ability to grow in its production from just 5 million tons in 1980 when I started my career to over 70 million tons annually today, dominating world trade and taking top spot as the largest oil produced using the least land to produce it compared to other oils and fats. Nonetheless, this afternoon's webinar is conducted to encourage everyone to listen and share views with notable experts who have been supporting sustainable palm oil endlessly. Ms. Imke Sesinga, and the food advisor of food legislation of the European Palm Oil Alliance, EPOA, and Mr. Nico Rosen, the honorary president of Solidaridad Network, and moderated by our longtime friend in the sustainable palm oil advocacy, Professor Petro Paganini. Let us have a balanced public discourse during this valuable opportunity, as it is our hope and desire that you will take advantage of this webinar to come up with valuable recommendations and conclusions that would be fairly beneficial to the interests of palm oil consuming and producing countries. What we have learned during this pandemic period is one thing: the imminent need to foster collaboration, starting from dialogue such as this. I wish you a more successful webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Baziran or Dr. Bariziran, for your introduction, I would say, to the topic, and for highlighting one important element that you argue, and you do it on the basis of scientific data and evidences, is that palm oil is one of the ingredients or nutrients or plantation, if we think about oil palms, that can help us mitigating and reducing the speed of climate change and the human impact on climate change. But when I see this palm oil free on products, I think exactly the contrary, that palm oil is actually bad either for our health, as somebody argued, or for the climate. And I just want to show you a short slide, a slide with some numbers. So if Laura from Europtimum, and I want to thank Laura for being here with us with the Europtimum, can share the slide, please. It's one basic slide. I know that each of you would probably have different number, but it's useful to have an understanding of how many brands and products have been out there with somehow highlighting that they are excluding palm oil. So you see that France is a gigantic number. Italy, the country I was born and I live, as a good number, as we know, and all the others are following. And there are some also up and down. I know that some of you have different numbers on this, and it depends on the different type of research, but this is what we took from the online because it's available for everybody from a consumer organization. Thank you, Laura. So I want to go to specifically into the discussion now. And as you see, there is no lawyer. So at least in the audience, I see there's a big audience. So thanks for joining us. And I'm very happy and proud that there are so many people listening to us. That means that it's a very interesting and I would say crucial topic, but we don't have lawyers or legal advisors today. So why? Because we didn't want to enter specifically into the legal aspects of the discussion, but we want to go into more of the contents. And before moving to Nico, I want to start with Imke from EPOA. So I would say the institution or the alliance of the palm oil experts, and Imke there is specifically working as an advisor on food legislation. So in a way, is also bringing us some legal aspects. So Imke, as for Dr. Baziran, I'm giving the camera to you. So please You have 10 minutes. Very quickly, I'm not used to be always a good moderator, but I have to do housekeeping. There is a chat where you guys, the audience, can share messages, and there is also a question and answer section. And don't forget that this event is being recorded as well. So if you have any question or any comments you want to make, feel free. And I see that somebody has already done to use the chat or the question and answer, or even raise your hand. I don't know how to bring you into the discussion, but let's see. Inke, camera is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Pietro. And I would like to say good day to all of you, because you are in different time zones. And I'm really honored to present to you the EPOA position with regard to palm oil-free claims. And hopefully we can identify some strategy to deal with these claims, because these claims, as we have just heard, and again, they are seriously complicating our endeavor to move towards 100% sustainable palm oil. Could I have the first slide, please? Forgot that. And the second slide, please. Next one. Okay, just let me briefly introduce the European Palm Oil Alliance. We are firmly believers that sustainable palm oil is a key food ingredient that will help feed the world, help protect biodiversity, and improve socio-economic development, and overall contributes to achieving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, as also already mentioned by Dr. Basiron. All our members are in the vegetable oil refiners and industry associations, and we also are supported also by industry associations in consumer and in producer countries, which is quite important, I think. Next slide, please. One positive message that I can give you, of course, is now that there's growing government support for sustainable palm oil in Europe. You can see that now already 9 countries signed the renewed Amsterdam Declaration, Partnership and Commitment 2025. So that is a good message. Then please, next slide. Another positive message is that we have a very strong network in Europe with up to now already 13 national initiatives who are really the feet and eyes on the ground, and who can make the difference in the countries. Next slide, please. Well, here you see the slide that has also been shown on Spot some time ago with the uptake of sustainable palm oil for Europe in 2020. And as you can see, we have now reached a new record high of 90%. So it is at this time in moment much harder, or even almost impossible, to find products that contain unsustainable palm oil. So you can only have, 9 out of 10 products contains sustainable palm oil. But even so, this positive news seems not to have reached the market, as palm oil-free claims are still used in abundance. I would like to point out at this time that the sustainability includes both environment and also social issues, just to be sure that it's not only deforestation, but there are also other aspects to take into account. Next slide, please. Well, like I said, foods free from palm oil are still being used a lot, but they are not by definition healthier or more sustainable than foods that contain sustainable palm oil. And as said before, free from palm oil products disrupt the markets moving towards sustainable palm oil. Laura, I would like to show the movie here. It's on the slide 1 further down. Slide number 6, number 6, where we have the small movie, the short movie where we Okay, thank you very much for that. Yes, here we are. Next slide, please. Well, as we saw in the movie, this might be a way to inform consumers about the right things about sustainable palm oil. But how can we tackle the disruptive free from palm oil claims? I think we should take into account 3 aspects. First of all, EU legislation. Secondly, consumer perception, and lastly, the possible options for action. Next slide, please. For the EU legislation, we can look at, and I think we have looked at legislation concerning nutrition claims, the food information to consumer legislation, and claims on cosmetics products. And also, I think Farm to Fork might give some openings. The more legal complete texts are in the presentation that you will get after the webinar, but I don't think it would be useful to put all the articles and the legal texts in this presentation, as this is not a really legal presentation. And you may be wondering what claims for cosmetic products is doing here, but we will get to that in the end. Next slide, please. Okay, when we look at consumer perception, palm oil could mean to consumers, it could be just an ingredient like any other ingredient. It could mean for them that palm oil is bad because it contains saturated fat, like Pietro, I think, mentioned already. That was where we started with the free from palm oil claims. They could also think that palm oil is bad because it's not sustainable and it is the cause of deforestation. Therefore, for them, palm oil free could be either neutral. If they think it is just an ingredient like any other, then if it's not in there, that could be neutral. But it could also be positive in the consumer's perception because palm oil is bad. If it's bad and it's not in there, then the product would be right. But the implicit or explicit information given by companies and organizations using these free from palm oil claims is in such a way that I think it's safe to conclude that a lot of consumers will have a negative perception of palm oil because of the claims. Next slide, please. I would also like to point out at this point that also, I think Pietro mentioned that also already, that legislation is at EU level, but the execution of compliance is at national level. So this is normally, and also in this case, clearly a cause for non-harmonization. And also, I think in none of the EU member states, there is a clear jurisdiction. I mean, this kind of claims, then you can either go through advertising associations, or you have to go to competition authorities, or it is the food law enforcement authorities. So it is, or civil law. So it's not really clear if you have a complaint about free from palm oil claims where you can launch that claim. This is also a complicating thing. Then I would like to have the next slide, please. So what could we argue against the free from claims on the sustainability aspect? We could say that consumers are misled because they will see free from palm oil as better or more sustainable than other products. However, they should prove this if you use a claim like that, but this is hardly ever done. It is some sort of, it's implicated or it's a little bit suggested in some places. So that's always a bit fake. On the nutrition side, consumers will understand free from palm oil as meaning that it's low in saturates or reduced in saturates, and therefore no palm claim would be in violation with the claims regulation because it does not fulfill the requirements for either of these two claims. Then we have the labeling legislation. And then you could argue that in general, a free from claim is misleading because there is already in the legislation the obligation to mention the ingredients in the list of ingredients. If something is not present in the product, it will not be in the list of ingredients. So there is really no need to highlight the fact that certain ingredients are not present. Next slide, please. So how could we stabilize the market for sustainable palm oil? And at the same time also give counterweights to the use of free from palm oil claims. At EPOA, we believe that with more positive and honest information on sustainable palm oil, there is less need for advertising palm oil free, because if everybody knows that palm oil, sustainable palm oil is positive, then there's no need to say that there's no palm oil in products. And for this, all players in the palm oil chain, absolutely, we think, need to work together. So it's not only producers and producing countries, but also and especially, we believe, manufacturers, retailers, scientists, and NGOs. And we should, in the information given, also include misconceptions on nutritional aspects, just to make the picture complete. We should amplify this information with social media, and together we can make sustainable palm oil the sexy, attractive alternative. That is our belief, and that is what we are aiming for. Next slide, please. So how can we counter palm oil free claims? We think what we need is to engage in an open dialogue to find out why free from claims are used, and explain, like I said, with honest and transparent information, that by using these palm oil free claims, consumers are likely to be misled, both on nutrition and or sustainability aspects. We should stimulate different players in the palm oil chain to join SPOC, the Sustainable Palm Oil Choice, RSPO, and or national initiatives, so we can jointly inform about the goodness of sustainable palm oil. And we should investigate options for regulation at international EU level. Getting into that last part, I would like to have the next slide, please. Because the options for regulating palm oil free claims as we see them at the moment are the following. On the nutrition claim side, this may be cumbersome to achieve, as this has to be tackled, like I said before, on member state level, which is not harmonized and can be quite labor intensive and expensive as well. The same goes for the relation with FIC and ingredients. As for option 3, the lobby for explicit prohibition of free from XYZ claims in relation to sustainability, I think that could be a successful way in relation with the farm to fork strategy. And lastly, I would like to have a look at the legislation on conditions for the use of claims in cosmetic products. This, you may be very surprised to find this, but in the next slide, I will show you why we think that could be of help. Next slide, please. For cosmetics, there is legislation in the EU on the conditions for using claims. And especially interesting is point 5 in the annex, which states the following, and I will read it out to you. Claims for cosmetic products shall be objective and shall not denigrate to competitors, nor shall they denigrate ingredients legally used. Next slide, please. And as palm oil is a legally permitted ingredient, any free from palm oil claim on cosmetic products can be opposed legally. And well, we were wondering whether we can try once to have the same conditions to apply for foods. And I'm really looking forward to your opinion on whether this could also work for foodstuffs. And yeah, just looking forward to discussing that, because I think all the other things are already, this is really new. So that's—
Thank you, Inke.
That's my presentation. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Inke, very much. There's a I have to do another housekeeping. There's always the question asking, can I get the slide? So I will give the answer at the end of our webinar, because otherwise people just drop off the webinar instead they have to follow. So obviously slides will be available and will be made available. Inke, you touched upon a very interesting point, particularly the last one, where you touch upon a legal aspect or a legislative aspect, as wondering from the cosmetic. And we have to congratulate with the cosmetic industry for making such a leap forward. Can we get it to the food industry? That's a good question, and probably we should also ask the food companies, because what is amazing though, and Inke, I will add that to your very interesting presentation, is that I'm amazed because there are some companies that are investing really much in sustainable palm oil or in sustainability in general, but then they also have a category of products with the label palm oil free or free of palm oil. That to me sounds like a contradiction. On one side, you promote palm oil and you promote the incredible work in sustainability, and on the other side, you're somehow boycotting just because you're running after a consumer. And the question is, where is the consumer getting the information? Why is the consumer thinking that palm oil is bad for health or is bad for sustainability? This is probably one of the other questions that we should ask today. We won't have the time to respond to today, but we should investigate this. Thanks also for the work that you and the POA are doing on promoting sustainable palm oil, and particularly talking and discussing now about the claims. And it's also important to remind that in different alliances around Europe, the palm oil alliances in each single country, I think about Italy, I think about France or Spain, have been engaged in and somehow in different ways into the legal discussion or even legal case at different court level on the use of or misuse of claims. So thank you, Inke. I'm coming back to you maybe later with some question. And I want to remind to our audience that there is a chat and there is a question and answer section where you can leave questions, not just about the slides. But I want to move to Nico Rosen, who's the honorary president of Solidaridad. And the reason why we have Solidaridad here is somebody would say, what's the matter between Solidaridad and the palm oil free claim? Well, the answer is that Solidaridad has done and is doing an incredible work with smallholders. So and you will define probably who smallholders are, but it's the family who owns around or less, the definition is very unclear, of two actors. And how the boycotting of a certain ingredient, palm oil in this case, can have terrible implication for smallholders. And on the other side is instead the engagement of smallholder, how this is very important in fostering sustainability. And since we're talking about sustainability, it's very important that the European Union Commission and the Parliament keep in consideration that if you design a legislation, you cannot forget about the very first who are producing something that comes to Europe, being the smallholder. And before giving the word to you, Nico, I'm just doing a little advertisement for you, but I would like everybody to take note of the most recent Solidaridad study that is called Including Smallholders in EU Action to Protect and Restore the World Forest. I think it's a very simple, very brief paper, but with very strong points that I think everybody should read. So Nico, camera is yours now.
Thank you, Shah. So thank you for offering me this opportunity to share my thoughts with you. I assume that we have a common understanding as participants in this webinar that palm oil free and even anti-palm oil marketing is not helpful. It doesn't offer any solutions. It doesn't help us to maintain forests. And moreover, this negative attitude will destroy farmer perspectives, small farmers and estates, and deprives global consumers of an affordable cooking oil. I think at the end it is playing games with often poor consumers and farmers. Let's take a closer look. I can have my slides, hopefully. The yellow ones.
There are the yellow presentation with beautiful brand. Solidaridad is a wonderful yellow color. Here they come. That's the problem with slide, Nico.
Okay.
In the meanwhile, Lauren is looking for your slides, and I'm sure they're coming right away. Oh, there's a problem out there. I'll just see that there are a bunch of questions. So Inke, meanwhile, because a bunch of them are directed to you, particularly the first one where it says one recommendation, try to write very short question, because otherwise it takes very much to read them, and it makes it very complicated, particularly for our speaker. If you read the first one, here we go with the slide meanwhile, but please, Inke, start reading the questions. Some are long, so we can go back to them later and answer them. Thanks. Nico, finally, we're back.
Next slide, please. It's just the introduction. So it doesn't help maintain forests, destroy farmers' practice, and deprives global consumers of an affordable cooking oil. Next one. Let's take a closer look at these developments. In my home country, the Netherlands, we have seen successful introductions of a range of palm oil-free products. Recently, the so-called Flower Farm company is using this logo. Eat plants, no palm, please. There were already palm oil-free products on the shelves of markets in the Netherlands. In the earlier cases, marketing was linked to the used ingredients, not emphasizing the ones not used. This marketing strategy was not explicitly aggressive against palm oil, while making the statement palm oil free. The flower farm messaging opened, in my view, a new chapter introducing an aggressive anti-palm oil marketing strategy, going beyond the claim of palm oil free. The anti-palm oil messaging is the identity of the product. It is the brand value. Next slide. IPOA, with prominent support of Solidaridad, asked for a legal opinion of the Dutch Advertising Code Authority. And we have won the court case. The court rejected the arguments of the Flower Farm Limited, even in a second time in an appeal procedure. The court has ruled that the anti-palm oil messaging was misleading, one-sided, and unprovable, summarizing that the message could be seen as dishonest advertising. Moreover, and it's interesting to understand, the authority stated, marketing based on discrediting ingredients the product doesn't contain, in this case palm oil, is unfair, particularly if the comparison is made on incorrect, manipulative grounds. So this was a very important position taken by an official authority in the Netherlands. Slide 5, please. So we concluded this, and we have communicated this prominently in our markets. The court concluded that anti-palm marketing is misleading. By consequence, the Flower Farm has to adapt the messaging on the packaging, their website, and their commercials. This was a first step in the right direction. At the same time, we made our analysis and we see the limitations of the legal support we got from the court. The Flower Farm still actively communicates the palm oil-free components of their products. They have minimalized the anti-palm oil rhetoric. And the new route to communicate more explicitly this anti-palm oil message is in the free publicity in the public media. And in the public debate, there is freedom of speech in our country. It is legally allowed to tell nonsense. There is still a long way to go, in my opinion, to move from these boycott approaches and anti-palm oil propaganda in the media, telling that's the alternative you have to present, the full story about palm oil. Consumers and politicians are still confused on this subject. Next slide. I think the real story is about unlocking the potential of palm oil and to develop effective answers on critical sustainability issues, and so the potential of growth. So we have to create clarity on the no-go areas and the go areas of sustainable development of a promising sector. No-go areas can be understood of related to issues of deforestation and peat areas, but we have to emphasize the go areas. Reclaiming degraded soil for cultivation, moving away from non-lucrative crops, replanting, producing more with less. So we have to portray the product as a product which is successful and which has a high potential. Next slide, please. So we have already concluded that, and it is made, this statement is made many times. The future of palm oil is sustainable oil. No boycotts, but addressing the critical issues. The suggesting that alternative vegetable oils could replace palm oil is misleading and counterproductive. I think this is a common ground for common action. Next one. Most probably you know this data. Palm oil is the most productive vegetable oil in our world economy. Discriminating palm oil in favor of vegetable oils from European sources is not a smart choice at all. Let's be clear. Sustainable development starts with the economic dimension. Effective use of scarce resources like land, soil, water, energy, and investments. A precondition for addressing the social and ecological dimensions of agriculture will be a preference for agricultural products with the potential to meet demand efficiently. Palm oil has by far this potential. And Western campaigners against palm oil have to realize that palm oil is primarily the cooking oil of hundreds of millions of poor consumers, an affordable oil without any replacements. So for this reason, the future of palm oil is sustainable palm oil. Next one. Finally, we have to create a better understanding in Europe, but I think this is a global ambition, a better understanding between the necessity of sector transformation and the dynamic behind sector transformation. Western demand will not be a decisive factor. Europe is only using less than 12% of global production, the US another 2%. For sure, Asian production and consumption is the main force for good. Only local ownership of the sustainability agenda can drive transformative change. We have developed this way of thinking, raising the bar and raising the floor. Creating a positive dynamic between front-runner concepts like RSPO, monopolizing of energizing efforts from the market, and the national standards, the political responsibility and ownership of governments to steer developments in their own countries. And we see this type of ambition to move from voluntary standards to mandatory ones, to create a norm by law, to move from niche markets to mainstream markets, to emphasize the importance of national ownership, to go from an early minority to a late majority, to go from exclusion to inclusion, to go to a license to operate from a sustainability perspective. This way of thinking creates an agenda, a common agenda between producing countries and consumer countries, and defines the main responsibility for transition where it has to be in the hands of farmers and their governments. So I hope that this picture clarifies our thinking on the dynamic which is needed. Next one. I'm inspired by this information and this updated information by our friends in Indonesia. And I know that also our partners in Malaysia are going this route. developing their own schemes, ISPO, MSPO, and to be ambitious in transforming their sectors. Clarifying the basic principles of their certification programs with these 7 elements. And I hope, and I think this is the ambition of Solidaridad, to enter in a deep discussion with European policymakers and with companies to accept this thinking about transforming markets and defining responsibility of companies, but also acknowledging the core responsibility of governments to lead this process and to overcome the polarization we are facing now in the political domain and in the markets. So my understanding is the best way to overcome the growth of anti-palm oil marketing strategies and palm oil free strategies is to create this new understanding of how we have to cooperate and how we can solve the real issues in close cooperation between the actors in a global economy. So this is our way of thinking, and we are trying to link this thinking with concrete actions and interactions with all stakeholders. And I think, and that's my closing remark, the strength of Solidaridad is that it is an international, a global NGO, but it is rooted in the different producing countries. We have a high capable team in producing countries of palm oil, in Indonesia, in Malaysia, but also in Africa and in Latin America. And they have learned us that this agenda owned by stakeholders in their own environment could lead to a new perspective and solving issues in the right way. So this is my modest contribution to the debate. Many thanks for now.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nico, also. And thanks again for the great work, really, that Solidaridad is doing, as you said, not just in Southeast Asia, but all around the globe, and particularly in producing countries, including Africa and Central America. There were a bunch of questions, actually, that came in. Some were more common. There was one by Joan Calderon in Belgium that was already addressed regarding what is happening right now in the parliament in Belgium. That's a very interesting discussion that is going around there. There was concern that there are countries that are copying commercially. I say it's a trend. It's becoming in vogue, in fashion. So we're talking about the Baltic country, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia that are somehow importing the free from palm oil, and it's expanding there. There were some also ironic statements about what if on some products we would have soy-free or sunflower-free or rapeseed-free. What would be a reaction of European consumers? To be honest, and we have to be very frank on this, we're specifically focusing on Europe. But the problem is not just concerning Europe. The US somehow have solved this with a specific FDA statement back, I think, 2 decades ago or something like that, that I think it could be a model to be imported here in Europe. But the free from is being used all around the world, Australia, New Zealand, and even in Southeast Asia, Malaysia and Indonesia. I found myself some products that were saying palm oil free. So even inside producing countries, there is this, let me say this, a sort of cancer that is unfortunately developing. Inke, you saw that there were a bunch of very interesting questions by our many audience, big audience that is following us. But since my dream is to go to the supermarket and see a RSPO logo or a logo that says, "We certify sustainable palm oil," what is the strategy, or what can we do to get to that point? Because I think it's better to inform consumers that there's something good in there rather than telling them I took away something bad by also somehow breaking scientific evidences.
First of all, I think I would like to correct you that by taking out something, it's not always something bad that you take out. You can, if you say no palm oil, then you take out good thing. So that's, I think.
That's true. You're perfectly right.
And anyway, I think what, like I tried to say in my presentation, I think what would help if there was a lot of good, positive, honest information about sustainable palm oil. That would really help, because now people they only get the negative news about, and they don't somehow get the positive news. And I think we should spread that more widely, and also look at at ways that you can, in a legal way, make sure that that free from claims are regulated if they are not really informative for consumer. So a no palm oil claim, or a no rapeseed, or no sunflower, and maybe there are other ingredients as well. It's just plain stupid to put that on the package, because it's easily already from the list of ingredients that what is in the product. And especially for vegetable oils, you have to mention the botanical origin. So, I mean, you cannot just say there's vegetable oils in my product. You have to say that the vegetable oils, which they are palm, rape, sunflower, olive oil, etc. So it's a little bit strange that then you take out one specific vegetable oil and say that is not in the product. Mm-hmm. So I think the only way to tackle this is to either regulate these things, or not either, but to regulate these things, and also to make sure that there is enough positive, attractive information about the goodness of sustainable palm oil.
Thank you very much. And as well as you know, and EPO is doing this very massively, is the effort of informing consumers and informing mostly stakeholders, particularly at the government level, the one that are taking decisions that are often themselves misled by silly, non-scientific information. Nico, I'm coming to you because this is a question that is has been actually came to me much earlier when we talk about smallholder. Now, Europeans have found out that there are smallholders, and actually 99% of the farming industry or sector is smallholders in some extent. Dr. Baziran earlier mentioned something important in terms of the quantity of land, that if we start boycotting palm oil and so reducing the production of palm oil, we will use much more land to produce our other fats. As you know very well, the World Health Organization and FAO agree that individuals all around the world, the 7.6 billion individuals, they need a certain amount of nutrients every day, including fat. And palm oil is probably the best way to produce this fat. But if we boycott palm oil, if we take it away from our products and we reduce the production of palm oil, we need to get these fats somewhere else. And it means we need more land. What is the consequences instead of boycotting on smallholders? If you have data, if you have a perception, if you have also, information from smallholders themselves, because I think that being a smallholder, if I was a smallholder and you tell me to be sustainable and to invest in sustainability, and I do this effort, and then I go to a supermarket and I see that that ingredient is boycotting my product, then I would be a bit upset. If not, at that point, I would turn somewhere else. As it happens, I'm not going to sell anymore to you. I'm going somewhere else where my product is well accepted.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting question. First, a short reaction on the issue was, how can we make the business community participating, for example, in the RSPO concept, more proud on the achievements and the efforts they are making. So I think NGOs can play an important role to change the picture and to demystify a lot of issues, but also companies have to be much more proud on the efforts they are making. So we have to work with those companies to do that, because they have specific capacities to inform consumers through the shelves of supermarkets. We can use the public media as NGOs, but I think companies have to be more proud on the achievements and the efforts they are making, but they are a little bit shy on it because they see the complexity of bringing this message across. On the complexities of this transformation in the agricultural sector, I'm fully aware of the fact that it helps us in the palm oil debate to emphasize better the consequences for our own agriculture in Europe. So there is a huge ambition for making agriculture in Europe more sustainable. And one key word is extensification. So we're coming from a period of intensification of production, and we have to extensification will be the new perspective to take more attention, pay more attention to the quality of our soils and all those issues which are there. So it will be impossible to replace palm oil by production of vegetable oils on the European continent. We have an ambition for reforestation. We have an ambition for extensification of agriculture. So we have to set priorities. And my way of thinking is that we have to convince the European authorities that they have to reduce production of vegetable oils on the European continent, because we have much higher and more urgent priorities given this ambition of make our own agriculture more sustainable. And for vegetable oils, there is a very strong alternative: production of this using this high productive vegetable oil from the tropical zones. So let's reduce the vegetable oil production in Europe to strengthen our strategies for modernization of our agriculture and buy more palm oil, because it is such a productive product, and there is no alternative for that. So this is a new way of thinking we have to put on the agenda of European policymakers.
Thanks, Nico, for raising this. I see there is a hand. I usually don't get people jumping in, but since I see that is the ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia here in Brussels, Luxembourg, and the European Union, I will give the floor to him. If we can ask, please, Laura, to allow the ambassador, His Excellency, the ambassador, to talk. But in the meanwhile, since Nico mentioned the European institution, and Inke, in your speech, you talk about that. And Thomas here, in Thomas Kiefer, in the last question you have in the question and answer, it seems hopeless or hopeful, I don't know. But the question is this a good time to make a difference with the legislation? Imke?
Yes, I think this is actually because we are in the middle of the process of the farm to fork strategy, where sustainability is a big issue, and the EU is working on deforestation-free claims, and when you can use these. So I think this is excellent timing, and there are lots of chances for palm oil to make sure that we go in our right direction.
Thanks, Inke. We got this point also from you and from Nico, so this is the right time with the farm to fork, with the reporting that the European Commission is preparing, and also with the work the Parliament is doing next week exactly on the comprehensive legislation or mandatory legislation, let's see, on front of pack and labeling. So I think there is much to be said. But I have the ambassador here. It's an exception ambassador. So Ambassador Adri Hadi from the Republic of Indonesia in Belgium and Luxembourg at the European Union level. So I guess you have a statement or a question. If you have a question, please do it. Or if you have a statement, we're happy to hear from you.
Thank you very much, Professor Pietro Patagini, Tan Sri Datuk Yusof Basirun, my good friend Pak Dupito, distinguished panelists and distinguished participants. Good morning and good afternoon to you all. I would like to appreciate CPOPC and Europeum for organizing this webinar. It is pertinent and valid topic, I think, because if you go to supermarket in Europe, as mentioned by Mr. Pietro and Mr. Imke, Mrs. Imke, you will see product with label no palm oil. Such label is misleading for the EU consumer and bring disadvantage to palm oil producing countries. I hope in today's discussion we can find concrete ways to resolve this misleading perception on palm oil free label. just to let you know that I wrote around 12 letters to companies in Belgium and other countries in Europe to address their palm oil free labeling policy. Interestingly, about only 4 companies replied my letter. If they even they said that they need like 4 months to reply my letter because they need to consult with their lawyer and everything. So basically, the companies mentioned that no palm oil labeling is a statement of truth, because it's truth that they don't use palm oil. And the second answer is driven by consumers' demand. And the third, causing deforestation. And the last one, they said that does not fulfill local content requirements. Next up. Allow me to share my comments in responding to several companies' letters. First, palm oil free label is just not a statement of truth. It's used to serve another purpose, to create a misperception that palm oil is a bad ingredient and worse than other vegetable oils. Meanwhile, we have no idea whether palm oil free products are healthier or more sustainable. And we do agree with Mrs. Imke that labeling practice is clearly against the spirit of the EU Food Information Regulation 2011. The regulation is issued to prevent the distinction between good and bad ingredients. However, palm oil-free labeling practice lead consumer to create such distinction. Secondly, the statement regarding the consumer demand is contentious. Over the past few years, I think many NGOs have been involved in negative campaign about palm oil, involving health, environmental, and human rights aspect. This campaign have changed consumer behavior and regrettably are not based on conclusive scientific evidence. In health aspect, there's no conclusive finding whether palm oil is bad for health. On the contrary, I could even mention several research where palm oil does not pose harm to the health. For example, like French Fund for Food and Health, Donald Max Namara from Eggs from Health Consulting, Washington, D.C., and Institute Economic Molinari. Their research suggests that palm oil free, even free from trans fat, rich in antioxidant, and other vitamins. So in environmental point of view, palm oil industry is fully aware the importance of sustainability aspect. Indonesia, for example, has taken substantial measures to improve its sustainable palm oil industry, including Malaysia and other palm oil producing country. And in human rights point of view, the government of Indonesia has set up national action plan on sustainable palm oil, which in line with the SDGs and fulfillment of the human rights aspect. Lastly, regarding the argument of deforestation, Indonesia has successfully implemented its moratorium policy, and Indonesia net deforestation has decreased at 75% in 2019-2020 compared with the years before. And in the past 2 years, Indonesia recorded its lowest deforestation rate with its 115,500 hectares. So I think palm oil should not be synonymous with deforestation anymore. And the argument based on local content requirement does not justify also the use of palm oil free labeling. There is no urgency to mention no palm oil. So I said to them, while, for example, rapeseed is used in the ingredients, just say this product use rapeseed oil. That's, I think, more than enough. The use of palm oil free label, of course, will only invite further question from consumers. What's wrong with palm oil? Following Mr. Nico's statement, palm oil free labeling will harm sales and image of a product containing palm oil, in particular sustainable palm oil. At the same time, labeling trend has created a new commercial segment. This segment surely provide commercial opportunity for retailers and producer no palm oil product. In the bigger picture, the impact of labeling can be quite counterproductive to the future of sustainable palm oil. I think that's my question, my response to this issue. And in concluding, I would like to stress that palm oil should be understood in holistic, transparent, and non-discriminatory manner. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador, and also thank you for your remarks. And I understand the work, the practical or pragmatic work that you are doing actually to try to figure out, first of all, why certain companies are on one side promoting sustainability and on the other side boycotting palm oil. This is a big question that probably has to do with the responsibility or social responsibility of companies. We're very close to the end of this webinar. We were supposed to stay within the hour, and actually we are just a few minutes later. And I have to thank all the audience because most of them have been here for the entire time, over 100 people. Just to remind that this is a recorded event. The slides will be, I understand, made available. But there is an interesting question that I got that I want to ask all of you, including you, Ambassador. You mentioned the sustainability of palm oil. We know very well that there is palm oil that is not sustainable, unfortunately, and there is a big portion, but there is also a lot and more entering, particularly Europe, palm oil that is sustainable. There are reports from national initiatives in Europe that they show how that sustainable palm oil is increasing inside each country in Europe. But the question that was asked by a consumer, I guess, because we're all consumer at the end, how do I know whether or not the palm oil in the product is sustainable? And how could a product, a label, a package inform me that that product is sustainable? And this goes also to apps today, since I can use an app to verify that. Is there any suggestion of how this can be done? Inke, I would start with you.
Yeah. Well, I think as we have now an uptake of 90% of sustainable palm oil in Europe, and I think most of that is, I think the gap is still a little bit in feed, but not in food. So I think it's much harder to find a product with unsustainable palm oil than one with sustainable palm oil, because 9 out of 10 at least have sustainable palm oil in that. So one thing that we could do is either to invent a new logo saying this product contains sustainable palm oil, or we could somehow advertise, promote more the fact that most of the palm oil in Europe is sustainable. And I think that as a POA, we would love to do that. And we would really also love to do that together with other companies and organizations. So I would just say, please join us in making sure that we can give this information, because it's very hard to do this with only a few people. You need all the players in the chain to bring out the same message, saying, in Europe, palm oil is sustainable.
Thank you, Inke. Nico?
Yes, I agree with Imke shared with us, because I see the limitations of using logos on packaging. And I know from my long-standing experience starting fair trade for 30 years ago, that when palm oil is just an ingredient, one of many ingredients in a product, and it is difficult to communicate a lot of information on a packaging. So I agree with Imke, the best strategy is to inform consumers and citizens that the European market is changing and is turning into a fully certified, SPO certified market. And we have all kinds of communication tools to bring this across and to share this and also to make to emphasize and to stimulate companies to be more proud about these achievements. They contributed to this certification program. They are committed to it. So I think the general perspective of consumption of LSPO in the market has to be upgraded and brought to this level of this understanding of the sustainability efforts. And again, I think it is not realistic to expect that companies are using a lot of logos to emphasize the quality of specific ingredients in a very complicated and mixture of products. So in coffee it is doable. In chocolate we see it. In chocolate we see they are using the fair trade logo, and because it is 90% coffee of chocolate. But this is an ingredient issue.
Thank you so much, Nico. Thank you, Hinke. Ambassador, do you want to tell us how Indonesia is thinking about making sure that all palm oil entering Europe or other countries is sustainable?
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor. I think for the time being, I think RSPO is one of the labeling that mostly accepted in Europe. But you may be aware about the situation in Indonesia, Professor. To make sure that all palm oil produced in Indonesia is sustainable, that's why we introduce Indonesia Sustainable Palm Oil. It will cover all sector. It will cover not only big industry, but also it will cover also small holders. That as of today, maybe some of their product is not sustainable. That's why Indonesian Sustainable Palm Oil will make sure that all product from Indonesia is sustainable. But definitely we need time to implement fully all the because it's not easy. The small holder is like 40% of Indonesian farmer. So that's why the government really support the small farmer to make sure that your product is sustainable. And then we always say to them, the future of business is sustainable in any products, not only palm oil. So if you want to market your product, coffee, whatever, other agricultural product must be sustainable. So that's my comment, Professor.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. And we also know that the moratorium you had in Indonesia expired, but your president, Yoko, took some other ways to ensure that there's no more deforestation, and deforestation at least is under control. So thank you very much for this commitment. It's probably an information that should be spread around Europe, because it would be very much helpful in showing the commitment of Indonesia in preventing deforestation and protecting biodiversity. We could have shown, guys, for all the more than 100 people that have been here following us, a lot of very funny example, Inke and Nico, and talking to you. I'm sure you're all familiar about Ryanair products not containing palm oil, coffee without palm oil, drinks without palm oil. There's plenty of, I would say, very creative products. And probably here, the one that is to be engaged is not the sustainability managers, but it's the marketing managers, the one that at the end are trying to sell products, and they look for any commercial trick in order to sell that. At the end is a trick. A palm oil, free from palm oil is a commercial trick, is a marketing trick, is a way, as some data has shown. And consumer know, they say, this is used just to convince me that the product is better. But some of them are very much aware. So let me conclude by, of course, thanking Nico, thanking Inke, thanking you, Ambassador, and thanking Euro-Optimum for putting this together, and particularly CPOPC for proposing this discussion that is not over here today, as to continue. But as Inke and Nico said, we are exactly on time to try to address this issue at the European level, not just at the national level, at the European level, because Europe is going through a major change in promoting sustainability, but also in promoting health and in the revision of its front of pack legislation. And I think each of you can make a big difference. Europe wants to empower consumers. Europe wants to promote sustainability, promote health, and empower consumers. And as Ambassador said, and as the presentation today said, the free from labeling and the free from palm oil labeling is not actually empowering consumer, and it's often providing a wrong, misleading information. The question is, where is this information coming from? Well, commercially, some companies are taking advantage of a fear that consumers have, fear toward palm oil. And that means, point one, that we need much more science-based information toward consumers and toward policymakers. And I know EPO is doing it, Solidaridad is doing it, all the alliances around Europe are doing it, but probably much more is needed, particularly from producing countries. So not just the commitment to do things, but also to communicate that things are done. As I said, point two, there is a legislation process going on, a very broad legislative process going on, and I think it's a good chance for all of us to be part of that. And then also to conclude, this is more on morality. It's more on responsibility, as I said. Companies have a social responsibility, but they also have a moral responsibility. So probably we should encourage some companies that are promoting sustainability that on the other side, they cannot, or they should not at least boycott something that they are trying to promote at the same time. Palm oil is a vital ingredient, as you know, it's providing food, as Nico said, to billions of people, food that they need, nutrients that they need, and it can be done sustainably. And Europe is proving that this can be done sustainably, it can be imported sustainably. Recently, Switzerland has declared that all the palm oil that comes from Indonesia must be certified sustainable. Probably this is an example that Europe could follow together with different labeling schemes. But I think that this can happen if all of us are doing our work as we did today. I hope we have been of help and very useful for you. And please continue following the work that each of us is doing, continue commit to not just sustainability, but to produce health and secure food, and of course, sustainable. Thank you so much to everybody for following us. The video is being recorded, so I assume it will be available soon for all of you if you want to rewatch it. Otherwise, thank you so much and good luck for everything.